Welcome to the Buddhist Temple of Toledo. Please be seated and turn to page 2 in your liturgy book. Gata of Atonement. All evil karma ever committed by me since of old, on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of my body, mouth, and thought. Now I atone for it all evil karma ever committed by me since of old, on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of my body, mouth, and thought. Now I atone for it all evil karma ever committed by me since of old, on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of my body, mouth, and thought. Now I atone for it all. Nikaya 3 Refuges. Buddham Saranam Gacchami. Buddham Saranam Gacchami. Dhammam Saranam Gacchami. Dhammam Saranam Gacchami. Sangham Saranam Gacchami. Sangham Saranam Gacchami. I take refuge in Buddha. I take refuge in Buddha. I take refuge in Dharma. I take refuge in Dharma. I take refuge in Sangha. I take refuge in Sangha. The 5 remembrances. I am of the nature to grow old. There is no way to escape growing old. I am of the nature to have ill health. There is no way to escape having ill health. I am of the nature to die. There is no way to escape death. All that is dear to me and everyone I love are of the nature of change. There is no way to escape being separated from them. My deeds are my closest companions. I am the beneficiary of my deeds. My deeds are the ground on which I stand. I am of the nature to grow old. There is no way to escape growing old. I am of the nature to have ill health. There is no way to escape having ill health. I am of the nature to die. There is no way to escape death. All that is dear to me and everyone I love are of the nature of change. There is no way to escape being separated from them. My deeds are my closest companions. I am the beneficiary of my deeds. My deeds are the ground on which I stand. I am of the nature to grow old. There is no way to escape growing old. I am of the nature to have ill health. There is no way to escape having ill health. I am of the nature to die. There is no way to escape death. All that is dear to me and everyone I love are of the nature of change. There is no way to escape being separated from them. My deeds are my closest companions. I am the beneficiary of my deeds. My deeds are the ground on which I stand. This precious human life, rarely encountered, is easily lost. Now that I have life and opportunity, may I practice the Dharma wholeheartedly. Mahayana refuge. In my heart, I take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. May I liberate suffering beings and bring them to great joy. May the compassionate spirit of love grow within me, that I may actualize the great way. In my heart, I take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. May I liberate suffering beings and bring them to great joy. May the compassionate spirit of love grow within me, that I may actualize the great way. In my heart, I take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. May I liberate suffering beings and bring them to great joy. May the compassionate spirit of love grow within me, that I may actualize the great way. Invocation of the lineage. I give thanks for the guidance of my teachers. For the lineage of teachers before them, I give thanks and offerings for their devoted practice of generosity, moral discipline, patience, joyful effort, concentration, wisdom, skillful means, unshakable vow, spiritual powers, and awakened awareness for my benefit. May their years of life be lengthened, may their vows be completely realized, and may I cultivate these perfections with their guidance. 7 practices of the Bodhisattva. I bow down in body, speech, and mind. I offer the best I have to give, both real and imagined, to fill the space between us. I regret and purify all transgressions. I rejoice in all virtues. I request you to remain until total enlightenment. I request wise and compassionate guidance. I dedicate my merit for the sake of all beings. Generating love and compassion, may all sentient beings be free from clinging and hatred. Being close to some and distant from others, how wonderful it would be. May this be accomplished. I will free them from clinging and hatred. Bless me to accomplish this. May all sentient beings enjoy happiness and the causes of happiness. How wonderful it would be. May this be accomplished. I will bring them happiness and the causes of happiness. Bless me to accomplish this. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. How wonderful it would be. May this be accomplished. I will free them from suffering and the causes of suffering. Bless me to accomplish this. May all sentient beings have the joy that has never known suffering. May they be free from clinging, hatred, jealousy, miserliness, doubt, pride, wrong view, ignorance, and dualistic thoughts. How wonderful it would be. May this be accomplished. I will bring them to this state. Bless me to accomplish this. Please stand for the Heart Sutra, found on page 4 in your literature book. Great Prajna Paramita Heart Sutra. Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva practicing deep Prajna Paramita clearly saw that all 5 skandhas are empty, transforming all suffering and distress. Shariputra form is no other than emptiness, emptiness no other than form, form is exactly emptiness, emptiness exactly form, sensation, perception, mental reaction, consciousness are also like this. Shariputra, all things are essentially empty, not born, not destroyed, not seen, not pure, without object of thought, no seeing, and so on, to no thinking, no ignorance, and also no ending of ignorance, and so on, to no old age and death, and also no ending of old age and death, no suffering, cause of suffering, cessation, hath no wisdom and no attainment, since there is nothing to attain. The Bodhisattva lives by prajna paramita, with no hindrance in the mind, no hindrance, and therefore no fear far beyond elusive thinking. Right here is nirvana. All Buddhas of past, present, and future live by prajna paramita, attaining anuttara samyak sambodhi. Therefore know that prajna paramita is the great sacred mantra, the great vivid mantra, the unsurpassed mantra, the supreme mantra, which completely removes all suffering. This is truth, not mere formality. Therefore set forth the prajna paramita mantra, set forth this mantra, and proclaim Gate Gate Para Gate Parsam Gate Bodhisattva Gate Gate Para Gate Parsam Gate Bodhisattva Gate Gate Para Gate Parsam Gate Bodhisattva. Infinite realms of light and dark convey the Buddha mind. All that is and we ourselves come forth in perfect harmony. We offer this sincere and devoted practice for the many beings of the six worlds, and dedicate it in grateful thanks to the strength and sound practice of the Great Heartland Sangha and its teachers. May our virtuous actions be clear from all interferences, and may our vows be fully realized. We especially dedicate these merits to Mike, Karen, Jerry, Matt, Emil, the Simone family, Evan, Carly's mom, Sarah, Sister Suzette, Soke, Roger, and the Ardner family. May they have peace and comfort. And to Margaret, Jeanette, Maggie, Mark, and Emily at the time of their death, and also those whose names we hold in the silence of our hearts, as well as those whose names we now voice aloud. May we live in perfect peace with Buddha Dharma, and may we realize the Buddha way together. Please prepare for Rosada. And we will now recite the Song of Covenant, found on page 8. We, the Diocesan Board of Peace with respect for the worth and dignity of each person, with wonder at the wisdom and compassion we seek to cultivate by practice, and with deep gratitude for the teachers of this lineage and our connection to one another, confident to support each other by upholding the precepts of doing no harm, practicing good, and actualizing good for others. Please be seated and all facing the teachers so you can make eye contact. And in a moment we'll recite the Gatan, opening the sutra, also found on page 8. On opening the sutra.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for being here. Many of us will know that we've just moved through the moment of the solstice, and it gives occasion for me to speak about a few things. We talk a lot about living in accord with reality in the Buddha Dharma. If you wanted to get really, really simple about it, Suffering comes when you're living out of sync with truth. When you live in a way that is simply not in accord with the way things really are, all of reality will fail to meet your expectations, and you will think it's reality's fault. And many of our fellow Homo sapiens have lived and died this way, proud of the fact. But it is unacceptable for a practitioner of the Buddha Dharma. This quest to actually land into the true self, to truly land in the heart of things, to reside in the heart of things, to abide in and as the true human body, to invoke and manifest reality in all its many forms. This is a tall order. The solstice has this beautiful teaching. All of nature is turned inward. Extreme produce opposite extreme. So, for example, if you encounter the teachings of the Buddha Dharma for the first time and immediately dedicate your entire life to a relentless pursuit of realization and awakening, I swear this is all I'm ever going to do and I'm totally in, I'm here, and you try to actually live that, you will reliably fail. Because too extreme. Slow cook there, honey. Slow cook. Gentle persistence, right? And the solstice teaches us this. It brings it out. It makes it very, very clear. And so this is an ideal time to actually, if you can, withdraw a little bit, maybe a lot, from the normal daily activities, whatever they are. Even if your daily activities are daily drenched in the formal aspects of practice, still withdraw from that too. It's important to find how to take some time aside and really consider. Look again. Look carefully and closely and honestly at what's happening with you. What's up with you? Anyway, what's up with you? What is up with you? Because really, this is all about you. So what's up with you? Interrogate yourself. Take some time to have some unstructured space and allow yourself to sit with some musings about, oh, I don't know, what's happened this whole past year? Maybe a little bit of examination of conscience, maybe a little inventory, perhaps, of how has it been going? One thing I really admire about the training that I've received is there's a relentless quality to this interrogation. The minute you think you know it, watch out, be careful. Stay open. Consider again all the assumptions, all of them. You may well find that, you're doing what you hope to do and you're living in a way that feels right, and good on you if that's true. Appreciate that fact and sally forth. But if not, don't ignore it. It's in the times of great stillness that you can plant a seed for great activity. In the midst of great activity, it's very difficult to plant seeds. You're in the light show. It's all happening. You're grooving, you're moving, you're doing. And that's good. I enjoy that very much. But what actually gives that ballast is the quiet time. And that happens in a given day with a good solid period of zazen in there somewhere, maybe 2, maybe 3. And then the hustle and bustle of the day. It happens in a more extended way in the week. Let's say you come to service and sit with others then and get a boost. Perhaps in a season you attend a retreat and like kick it up a notch. But it's this blend of stillness and activity and stillness and activity and stillness and activity, and don't get trapped in either extreme. The answer is not to just fantasize that you should just be sitting here facing the wall for the rest of your life. Nor is it to simply get yourself lost in all the fighting thousands of miles away. How do you resolve this? You must land in the heart of things. And this landing in the heart of things, this abiding in the moment, is not an easy thing. It's not as simple as it might seem on its face. As I was saying in this morning's discussion on the Lam Rim teachings, when we hear the words, be present, don't live in the past or in the future, we tend to think of that as meaning some very elongated thing. Like I'm still thinking about that time I fell off the Ferris wheel or something in the 5th grade, or I'm worried about what's going to happen, with my kid in 10 years, or some extreme time frame. But actually, if you watch very close, most of us, most of the time, are actually in a time lag. We're actually some seconds, milliseconds, nanoseconds, couple of seconds outside of what's actually happening. You're a little bit inside your face and back there, kind of watching at a safe distance, so you think. It's not a conscious behavior. I'm not saying anyone decides to do this, but if you watch very closely what's happening to your experience, this is quite common. So this be in the moment, landing in the moment, this is not just, this is a very subtle and this is a very practical thing. When you can feel your mind enmeshed in the gravitational pull of the next moment, you need to let go of that. Exactly now. When you feel your mind trapped in the gravitational well of a nanosecond ago, you must let go of that. Exactly now. And it takes some settling down to be able to notice that we're actually not in contact with the moment. We're actually inhabiting a narrative about the moment that lags behind it. What happens when we live that way? Well, what happens is we miss our life. You're actually living and dying in a story, missing contact with the actual experience. And look, I'm a fan of stories. I like stories. But not as a substitute for actual direct contact with the heart of things. So it takes an immense amount of heroism, actually, to put down all the coping mechanisms and all the masks and all the armor and all the strategies, particularly the ones you're good at, that have worked so well in certain circumstances that maybe you should keep using in those circumstances, but realize they don't apply to your actual heart of things. Reality will, gravity is a relentless principle. No exceptions. How is it that people can not notice this? It's quite simple. You are enmeshed in fears and anxieties, vacillating with amusements. It's amusing, it's scary. It's amusing, it's scary. It's amusing, like ping pong. We seek to be amused and distracted. We dislike being anxiety-ridden. And there you go. Avoid picking and choosing. Have no preference. Stop deciding, stop judging, stop evaluating. Simply bring your mind exactly here. Now, why this is particularly tricky is the more you tune into exactly here, you find there is no here. This moment itself is constantly slipping away. It never actually arrives. And you must learn to inhabit this non-space, because actually that is your life. You, dear one, are not a fixed thing. This moment, dear one, is not a fixed thing. Your true nature and the nature of this moment is not separate. They are not separate. Do not collapse yourself into a fixed thing in your mind. Do not collapse the moment into a fixed thing. You cannot. They often say it's like trying to go out and bottle the spring breeze or capture an ocean wave in a tank and take it home. And yet you can come to the end of time, which goes relentlessly faster, with a collection of empty jars. Where did your treasure go? Dear one, you mistook. You never really captured anything of real value. Let the spring breeze be the spring breeze. Let the solstice withdrawal be exactly that. And you be exactly you. Again, this is heroic. It's an act of defiance against suffering, to be willing to sit exactly in this non-moment. How would you ever practice such a thing? I know. Sit. But it doesn't stop there. It actually can get to the point to where when you're out in the world engaging in the light show, trying to be useful and helpful, that you can still abide in that not knowing, non-self, spacious reality. And still, you will look around your life and find causes and conditions, karmic unfoldings at every turn. Choices you made, now bearing fruit. Choices others made, now bearing fruit in your life. You must find this actual freedom. It has nothing to do with trying to eschew responsibilities in the world, or trying to convince yourself you're okay, or others, or indulging in any of these defense mechanisms, or self-hatred or loathing. None of this stuff will cut it. And you know that. You don't need me to tell you that. What I needed my teachers to do was to point a path that would help and would work. And to have walked that path deliberately, steadily, for quite some time. Now, along this pathway to the heart of things, along this journey to the true self, which no one can do for you, which you cannot do alone. The Lankavatara Sutra goes to lengths to point out that there are different modes, there are different spaces that one can find themselves in. Each of these particular spaces has its own sort of landscape of strength and shadow. And in the chapter called Discipleship, the sutra goes on to talk about these 4 levels, translated here as disciples, masters, arhats, and bodhisattvas. And you know, when we hear levels, people tend to think linear, like I'm going to go from 1 to 2 to 3, like grades or something. And it's kind of like that, but not really. But kind of. I think the more helpful way to think about this is that the sutra is pointing out these various spaces that we can inhabit, and it's good to know a little bit about where you are. So last time I discussed the disciple. And this is someone that has a difficult time with non-self. They have an affinity to the Dharma, they're drawn to the Dharma, but when it comes time to actually get into the reality of egolessness, a little bit of resistance there. And yet, a strong affinity. They have some freedom from the sufferings of action, and yet the impulses still arise. Habit energy is still very strong. There's no experiential insight into the twofold egolessness. Now the next is, the sutra calls this masters. And here there's a characterization is a little different. In this stage of training, in this mode of experience, you have some intellectual understanding. You actually kind of get it on an intellectual level, pretty decently. You can explain some foundational aspects of the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path, perhaps. The twofold egolessness, these important topics. But interestingly enough, even though you may cognitively understand some things, a piece of you is very much afraid of that, afraid of the implications of it. There's a little bit of an internal heart resistance, you could say. It's one thing to intellectually grasp a concept of impermanence, but it's something very else to live into it. The sutra says, these are those who have gained a high degree of intellectual understanding of the truths concerning the aggregates that make up personality and the external world, but they are filled with fear when they face the significance and consequences of these truths. Now, I see this a lot. There will be folks that get aligned or have an affinity with the Buddha Dharma. They come in, and then when it starts to get very real, there are kind of escape hatches that show up. A smoldering apathy can take over. A deep resistance to this. Some sense of being offended by it, or something must be wrong here. Or there are all kinds of escape hatches that we come up with. And what the sutra says is this is predictable enough. They are filled with fear concerning the implications of their understanding of the Buddha Dharma. I remember once when I was before what was then called the Guardian Council to become a Shokan student, Myotai, who was at that time ordained but not transmitted, was kind of head of the Guardian Council, and she said to me, you know, are you sure you want to do this Zen stuff? It will take everything away from you. I'm like, sure. That answer was not received well. A little too flippant, a little too arrogant. And I really was not hearing what she was saying. Interestingly enough, I failed. They said, no. You may not become a Shokan student. At least not now. And then they waited and watched to see what I would do with that. Smart move, actually. I would do the same with me. I didn't like it much then. What did I do? Did I pout and cry and whine and File a grievance, write a bad review on Google? No, I registered for the next session is what I did. I sat with my disappointment. Oh, I wanted that robe. Oh, I wanted that robe. And for good reasons, but I wanted it. So, filled with fear when they face the significance and consequences of the truth. The demands of your experience, what your experience will demand of you. As you encounter the Buddha Dharma, as you encounter yourself, there are certain requirements that come with experience. Like once you actually see how your mind is working, you can't unsee that. And that's a good thing. You can't really quit. After a certain point, it's too late for that. You can stop actively practicing, but you can't pretend you don't know these things. So beware. They are afraid to not become attached to the external world and its manifold forms, for making comfort, for making power, and they're concerned to keep away from the entanglements of the social relations. They are attracted by the possibilities of attaining things, such as miraculous powers. So this is very interesting. When you have a certain kind of entrance into the thing, there are basically two pitfalls that the sutra points out. One, you make a thing out of your understanding. And unbeknownst to yourself, you start putting your understanding on the altar and bowing to your own understanding and making a thing out of that. This is very problematic. As soon as you think you know it, you're missing something very important, critical in fact. But the other one is that there's a certain kind of a pull to the magical, to the ability to affect things and to shift realities and to, the sutra says, appear in two places at once, to exert miraculous force, manifesting bodies. Now this is not as esoteric as it may sound. That which you put your mind in starts to have a life of its own. And it starts to have an effect in the world. The habits of mind that you have cultivated, that you have practiced, create a force. And that force has momentum. And some people's force is quite powerful. The saving grace, however, is that at this level of training, they have a willingness to accept their intellectual understanding and the tension between it and what their fear might be. And they become willing to let go of the fear. Earnest disciples at this level will show a degree of spiritual insight that is characterized by sincerity and undismayed willingness to meet all the demands that the stage makes upon them. See, this willingness to actually meet the demands that you know your practice is uncovering. This is the pith of this stage. You see what's involved. You see what this is going to take. And there's an earnest, sincere willingness to take that on, even with the fear. There was a time when, I thought I could play guitar pretty well. At the local shop, I was like the guy at 15. And so I went off to music school thinking I'm going to be amazing. And it was amazing, all right, but not the way I thought. And it took a couple of years, but I suddenly got myself to the point where I understood how much work this was going to take to actually play the way I wanted to. And there was like a little bit of a come to reality here. Am I going to do that or not? Right? And I don't know any artist that hasn't confronted that at some point. And there are many right answers to that question. But in the Buddha Dharma, there's only one. Do it. Because this is not some mere thing like playing music or any activity. This is your actual life itself. Your actual life and your actual death. Realizing the reality of you. This is so much more important than career or activity or relationship or any other circumstance. The question of what is going on here? Who am I? So this willingness and earnest eagerness to do what your own experiential insight is asking of you, demanding of you, actually. Earlier stages, not so much. I'll see it, acknowledge it, kind of not deal with it. And that's okay for a while. This ability, this willingness to adjust your life, to actually adjust your life to the full demands of your truth. Adjust your life to the full demands of your truth. The willingness to actually adjust your life to the full demand of your own experience of your true reality. No one can do that for you. So I invite you to take this solstice time, as much of it as you can harvest, and really reflect and ponder. Get in contact with, how do you see yourself? How do you see the universe? What has your experience of your life been? And I'm not talking about just the mundane, you let go of what no longer serves you kind of stuff. Yes, that's great, but who are you? What is it that's happening here? And lean into your own experience of the Dharma and ask yourself, what does this demand of me? Like if I know in my own experience that wielding my mind in this way creates suffering for me and those I love and care about, what are the implications of that? It's not another six-pack. It's not another hour of scrolling around pleasant distractions. Better to put the six-pack away and put the phone away and actually notice what you're feeling. How about? And if it's not a good feeling, stay with it anyway. Maybe there's some nutrition in there for you. The willingness to actually feel the pinch is necessary at times. Those that end up crafting beautiful music are those who are ruthless in their unwillingness to accept that which they don't like the sound of. You know? What about your life? So I know it's a big ask, but I take you seriously. The sutra takes you seriously. Please, you take yourself seriously. Enjoy it, but take yourself seriously. You, really. What have you seen in the Dharma yourself? What have you gotten from the sutras in your own practice this year? And what does that really mean? If you keep doing that, it's inevitable. Sooner or later, one way or the next, you will come to awakening. If you fail to do that, almost impossible. For the sake of all beings throughout space and time, everybody, please take it up.
thank you everyone for choosing to be here today.